This song defined an era and became one of rock's greatest mysteries. From its Grammy-winning success to recent courtroom drama, this is the story of how a 6-minute rock epic captured America's dark underbelly and at the same time became a story about betrayal and the price of fame. If you guys want me to do more stories on the Eagles, let me know in the comments section below. The more of you that comment, the more likely I am to do more videos on them in the future. Before we get started, be sure to hit the bell notification icon and put all notifications on. I hear from a lot of my subscribers that they don't even get notifications when I post my videos. I would greatly appreciate if you guys did that. In addition to, of course, watching my videos and sharing my content. The musicians who formed the original lineup of the Eagles came together in 1971. This included Don Henley, Glenn Frey, Randy Meisner, and Bernie Leadon, who all played with Linda Ronstadt. They signed with Asylum Records in September of 1971, and they crafted a signature country rock sound that later evolved into something that was far more complex. Guitarist Don Felder joined the Eagles in early January of '74, and he was initially brought in to add slide guitar to the songs Good Day in Hell and Already Gone. After impressing the band with his performance, he was quickly invited to become a full-fledged member. His addition to the group marked a significant shift in their sound as they began moving away from their country rock style towards a more rock-oriented direction. In 1975, the band issued One of These Nights, and the album proved to be the group's first #1 record of their career. But it was also the last record to feature guitarist Bernie Leadon, who didn't agree with the band's new musical direction, and he left the group and was later replaced by Joe Walsh. Fast forward to 1976, Don Felder finds himself staying at a Malibu beach house that he had rented. Felder soon gave a copy of the song, along with 16 other tracks, to Don Henley and Glenn Frey. Henley first heard the song while driving one evening through Benedict Canyon in Los Angeles. A few days later, Henley called up Felder, with Henley stating, "I kind of like the one that sounds like a Mexican reggae song, that kind of Spanish thing," and I knew which track he was talking about instantly. We started talking about it, and Don and Glenn kind of came up with the idea.
Don Henley and Glenn Frey, especially Don, wrote some just brilliant lyrics. Don, as a lyricist, writes these little postcard pictures, and he throws you a picture on a dark desert highway. You can see that. Cool wind in my hair, you can feel it. The warm smell of colitas, you can smell it. You know, he's got a brilliant way of writing these little picture postcards lyrically that takes you up to a place where when he sees the chorus, then you're like, it all makes sense, you know.
Felder added that since none of the band members from the Eagles were from California, they all shared that memorable first experience of driving towards Los Angeles at night. They witnessed the city's glow from miles away, with him remarking, "All of us kind of drove into LA at night. Nobody was from California. And if you drive into LA at night, you can just see this glow on the horizon of lights and the images that start running through your head of Hollywood and all the dreams that you have." And so it was kind of about that. When it came to the lyrics, Frey and Henley took inspiration from several sources, including the John Fowles book The Magus, The Twilight Zone, and the group Steely Dan. The Magus revolves around a character named Nicholas Urfi who accepts a teaching position on a Greek island. During his time there, he becomes involved with the owner of a wealthy estate who leads him into a complex psychological nightmare involving staged deaths, erotic encounters, and terrifying violence. Frey and Henley wanted to replicate the feeling of uneasiness in the book. The song also took inspiration from the show The Twilight Zone, and the song achieves this through several ways. Frey came up with the scenario of a person who's tired from driving a long distance in the desert. They see a place to rest and pull in for the night, but they soon enter a weird world occupied by freaky characters and become spooked by the claustrophobic feeling of being caught in a disturbing web from which they may never escape, much like The Twilight Zone. Every time the main character walks through the door, there's a new version of reality, and Henley and Frey crafted the lyrics that would both capture the allure and excess of the California lifestyle and dream. Just as The Twilight Zone often addressed serious social issues, Hotel California serves as a commentary on the darker side of fame and the American dream. The song was also significantly influenced by Steely Dan in both its lyrical approach and content. Glenn Frey explained that they were impressed by Steely Dan's willingness to say anything in their songs without necessarily making sense, a technique Steely Dan called joke sculpture. There's a tip of the hat to Steely Dan in the line, "They stab it with their steely knives, but they just can't kill the beast."
Stab it with their steely knives, but they just can't kill the beast.
The reference was also partly in response to Steely Dan's earlier mention of the Eagles in their song Everything You Did.
Turn up the Eagles, the neighbors are listening.
It was this influence that led to there being an ambiguity on exactly what the song is about. Some Satanists, all the way to evangelical Christians, think it's about devil worship. So a year goes by from the time Felder crafts the demo to when the band is actually in the studio, ready to record the song. When Felder began playing the solo, Don Henley had to stop him and tell the guitarist to play the same solo he had done 1 year prior on the demo. Felder couldn't remember what he had played since so much time had elapsed, so he had to call his housekeeper to get the demo, and he had her play it over the phone so he could relearn it. Recording the vocals also proved to be difficult as Henley had a hard time finding the right tempo and key. The vocals had to be recorded over several different sessions.
Welcome to the Hotel California.
As for the iconic 2-minute plus guitar solo, it was a dueling solo between Walsh and Felder. The guitarist took about 3 days to work out the whole part. The recording soon moved to Miami, Florida, as the group's producer had concerns about an earthquake in California. But being in Florida presented its own set of challenges, as Black Sabbath were recording in the studio next door, and it was so loud it could be heard in the Eagles studio. The final version of Hotel California was stitched together from 33 different edits. With the tracks laid down, the band had to discuss and figure out what was going to be on the finished record. There was already some resentment between the members, with some of them being late to the sessions, showing up in the middle of the afternoon. The record label was also growing impatient with how long the recording was taking, but the band's response was, "It'll be done when it's done." As the sessions finally wrapped up, the band and their label had to decide on which songs to issue as singles.
Everything was mixed, and we had a bunch of record executives down. We played it, and when Hotel California played back, Don turned around and said, "That's going to be our next single." And in 1975, AM radio had a specific formula for what it would play. It had to be 3 to 3 minutes and 30 seconds long. From needle drop to the singer singing could not be longer than 30 seconds. It had to be an up-tempo like rock or something, or kind of a wet, mushy ballad. I said, "Don, I don't think that's the right song to come out of the shoot with, it's the wrong format. Maybe FM would be perfect, but not AM." He said, "Nope, that's going to be our single." And I'm so happy that he didn't listen to my suggestion that we don't put that song out as a single.
Because everybody played it, even though it was 6.5 minutes.
Right. Well, these jockeys loved it because they could put it on and they could go out and smoke a cigarette or go to the bathroom.
Of course, the people at their record label, Asylum Records, disagreed with Henley's take. Asylum suggested the song be edited down to something that was more palatable to radio stations, but the band said no, and Don Henley got his way.
Such a lovely place, such a lovely place, such a lovely face.
Hotel California was issued as the second single, with New Kid in Town being issued as the first. New Kid in Town topped the Billboard Hot 100 chart, as did Hotel California, giving the band their third and fourth #1 hits. Hotel California became the Eagles' only #1 single to go platinum. There were rumors as to whether Hotel California was an actual place or not. So a writer named Joe Cummings wrote a story in 1996 on the album and the title track's 20th anniversary. It was published in the Detroit Free Press, and it was also picked up by some bigger outlets like the LA Times that highlighted the supposed very hotel where Don Henley stayed and wrote the song. It was located in Mexico and was a $2 a night hotel about an hour away from Cabo in the sleepy surfing village of Todos Santos. I should note that the article has since been removed from the Detroit Free Press's archives. But the biggest problem with the whole story and the piece that was written was that ahead of it being published, no one seemed to bother asking the Eagles about the rumor. Then in 1997, Cummings did send a fax to Don Henley asking him to clarify whether the rumor was true or not, and he responded saying, "I can tell you unequivocally that neither myself nor any of the band members have had any sort of association with that establishment." Henley added that that particular establishment opened its doors after the song came out, but Cummings checked the archives and the hotel was established 2 to 3 decades before Hotel California came out, and at one point the hotel was actually called Hotel California, but it went through a series of name changes before once again using the name Hotel California. The Eagles ended up suing the hotel a few years ago, claiming that they were trying to associate themselves with the band when in fact no association existed. The Eagles pointed to how the band's music was being played in the hotel lobby and gift shop in order to confuse guests and help them sell merchandise. The lawsuit was later settled out of court. As for the hotel on the cover of the album, it's the iconic Beverly Hills Hotel. The Eagles had spent a good amount of time at the establishment, with Henley remarking, "We were getting an extensive education in life, in love, and business." Beverly Hills was still a mythical place to us. In that sense, it became something of a symbol, and the hotel the locus of all that LA had come to mean for us. In a sentence, I'd sum it up as the end of Innocence, round 1. The iconic Hotel California album cover was shot at the Beverly Hills Hotel just before sunset by photographer David Alexander and art director John Kosh in 1976. The creative process involved several key elements. David Alexander and Kosh were perched 60 feet above Sunset Boulevard in a cherry picker during rush hour traffic to capture the perfect shot. They took turns shooting with their Nikon cameras using high-speed Ektachrome film to achieve the distinctive grainy look as the light faded. The famous Hotel California neon sign wasn't actually present at the hotel. Interestingly, very few people actually recognized the hotel in the photograph due to the unusual vantage point and lighting, which also helped create this mysterious and slightly sinister atmosphere that Don Henley had requested. But interestingly enough, the Eagles never got the hotel's permission to use the photo, and as a result, the Beverly Hills Hotel nearly threatened to sue the Eagles. But following the song and the album's success, they saw their bookings triple, so it was great promotion for them.
Ready a room at the Hotel California.
The Eagles released the album Hotel California on December 8th, 1976, 2 weeks after Sex Pistols issued their single Anarchy in the UK. Talk about two completely different things going on in music.
Many ways to get what you want. I use the best.
To date, Hotel California is one of the best-selling records of all time, with sales exceeding 32 million copies worldwide. The Eagles won a Grammy for Record of the Year, and Hollywood soon came knocking as Julia Phillips wanted to make a movie based on the title track, but the band said no. Hotel California was to mainstream US radio what Bohemian Rhapsody was to the UK. The song's guitar solo has also made many best-of lists. The Eagles managed to release one more album before the decade was over, putting out The Long Run in 1979. But the band broke up the following year as egos and personality conflicts resulted in the band calling it quits. The members drifted into their own solo careers, with Frey and Henley having quite successful stints on their own. Breaking up, the Eagles reunited 14 years later for the MTV special Hell Freezes Over and an accompanying live album. Don Henley told the audience, "For the record, we never broke up. We just took a 14-year vacation." The Hell Freezes Over album topped the Billboard album charts upon its release, where it stayed for 2 weeks. The album to date has sold over 9 million copies in the US. As part of the Hell Freezes Over record, the band also did an acoustic version of Hotel California.
There's plenty of room at the Hotel California.
But despite reuniting, the business aspect of the Eagles created tensions with Henley and Frey, who wanted more money. It was a stark change compared to years ago when everything was split equally amongst the members. Felder reluctantly agreed to go along with their request, but things finally boiled over in 1999 when he was fired and each party filed their own respective lawsuits against one another, with them eventually settling out of court.
Lawyers for the Eagles went to court today in one of the most mysterious legal battles in Hollywood. A founding member is suing after he was thrown out of the band. Dan Simon has the story.
Welcome to the Hotel California.
Their music, of course, is legendary. And now the Eagles' bitter legal fight is reaching similar status, with dueling attorneys appearing in Los Angeles court for the umpteenth time.
Eagles Limited, the defendant.
2 years ago, guitarist Don Felder sued bandmates Don Henley and Glenn Frey for $50 million after they kicked him out of the band. Today, the thick case file is still growing in a dispute so mysterious that sources connected to the case disagree on how close or far apart they might be to settling it. The case is so shrouded in secrecy that no one will go on the record. Daniel Petrocelli, one of the biggest celebrity lawyers in the country, having successfully represented the Goldman family in the O.J. civil case, won't even talk on behalf of his clients, Henley and Frey. As far as celebrity lawsuits go, few have been so closely guarded. It all started in 1994 when the Eagles reunited for the Hell Freezes Over tour, a reference to a remark Frey once made about the prospect for a reunion. In his lawsuit, Felder alleges that Henley and Frey, quote, insisted that they each receive a higher percentage of the band's profits. Until then, all band members had always received an equal share of the profits. The suit alleges that Henley and Frey, quote, forced Felder into accepting this one-sided agreement by threatening to fire Felder. Henley and Frey countersued, claiming that Felder breached his contract by writing and trying to sell a tell-all book, although no book has ever been published. After months of settlement discussions, might a deal finally be in the works? A source connected to Felder's camp says a deal had been reached in principle, and the parties just need to sign off. But other sources maintain that's not true, and substantial issues still need to be worked out.
The song was in the news again in 2011 when Frank Ocean released the song American Wedding on a mixtape called Nostalgia Ultra, which used the entire master track of Hotel California with new lyrics.
It's an American wedding.
Ocean claimed on his Tumblr account that Don Henley had threatened to sue him if he performed the song again, stating Henley was, and I quote, apparently intimidated by his rendition. However, it was later confirmed that Warner Music Group, not Henley, personally had initially raised the copyright issue. Henley and the Eagles became aware of the situation and then later considered legal action. Ocean, though, defended his action, stating he released the song for free and wasn't making money off of it. Henley, meanwhile, criticized Ocean's understanding of copyright law and intellectual property, calling his actions arrogant. Then in 2015, Henley referred to Ocean as a talentless expletive, indicating the feud had not been resolved.
Mean too much, but we were so alive.
Because of the threat of legal action, Frank Ocean's Nostalgia Ultra is not available on Spotify. In 2024, a major legal battle erupted over the song's handwritten lyrics. 3 men were accused of stealing the original manuscript, leading to a criminal trial that was ultimately dismissed when new evidence emerged regarding the fairness of their trial. Then Don Henley filed his own civil lawsuit against the 3 men, and it's currently ongoing. That does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again in Rock and Roll True Stories. Take care.